citizens and potentially even ISIS terrorists looking for a backdoor into the United States and Europe. We just got this video from Central America showing Honduran police arresting 5 Syrian citizens, at least they're believed to be. They were reportedly traveling with fake or stolen Greek passports, and we're told they were planning to get into the United States by illegally crossing over our southern border. In Turkey, authorities detaining 8 people. The men claim to be tourists, but law enforcement say they believe these could be ISIS militants trying to get into Germany. In Jordan, King Abdullah created a stir yesterday when he suggested we are now facing World War III, and we must act together and fast. The Pope said the same earlier last week. His comments supported by the former deputy director of the CIA, Michael Morell, who spoke to Fox's Brian Kilmeade earlier. Take a listen.
You believe that is he overstating it?
No, he's not. You know, I call it the Great War of our time, right? He calls it the Third World War. I think, in my mind, they're the same things. What they want is not just their caliphate in Iraq and Syria, right? They're not just going to be happy with that. They want a caliphate everywhere in the world.
Joining me now, retired Army Reserve Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer, who's a CIA-trained intel operative and senior fellow with the London Center for Policy Research. Good to see you, Colonel. So, you tell me, Russia just had an aircraft downed by this group. France has been attacked and lost over 100 civilians. Beirut was attacked 24 hours before Paris was. Obviously, the United States has an interest in defeating this group. So is there any way we are building a coalition now, a stronger coalition, a more meaningful one than we've had against ISIS? And what does it look like?
Well, that's the key. We must do that very thing. Unfortunately, Megyn, one of the things that was notable in the last 2 world wars that started was a misperception of weakness and a fanaticism. We have a fanaticism, and unfortunately for us, right now, we have essentially, and I'm going to say this, I'm going to get in trouble for it, Neville Chamberlain in charge of the United States. Someone who does not understand the gravity or scope of the threat now before us, who essentially somehow believes that if we're just a little bit nicer to them, if we just try to understand them, the Paris attack is just a setback. These things words mean something at the national level. So what is happening, Megyn, is that the people who should be signing up to be part of that coalition, an Arab NATO, which we've talked about several times, are really not even sure that they would receive good leadership from us. So this is creating huge problems. And for ISIS, the fact that the G20 speech was so weak, this feeds into ISIS's ability to be, in the Arab culture, the strong horse. The strong horse
let me ask you, so in defense of the president, 78% of the airstrikes against ISIS come from the United States, right? We are doing most of the airstrikes, and President Obama doesn't believe we should have too many U.S. boots on the ground, and many people have said that. And I get it, Arab force. I agree. But they're not going. So, at this point, what is likely to happen? The Russians are going to take the lead. The French are going to take the lead. What do you see happening right now?
The Russians are taking the lead. They have already moved out. They've been now bloodied by ISIS. You will see them double down, triple down, and going after ISIS targets. But let's remember here, Megyn, Vladimir Putin's not doing this to be a nice guy. He's not doing this to help us. He's doing this for long-term control of global oil. If he keeps going the direction he's going right now, within a couple of years, working with the Iranians, working to get control of Iraq, he will control 60% of the global fuel supply for the world. And that means for our allies. We'll be okay. Others will not. So you have to understand here that as much as we need to understand the ISIS threat, there's secondary and third order effects that we have to be looking at right now to prevent Russia from obtaining essentially that edge that they were looking for during the Cold War. So this is what I'm saying. President Obama is not playing this as a chess game. He is actually playing this in such a way he's displaying huge weakness without any plan. And all the components to really push together a great global conflagration is there. Nuclear technology in the hands of adversaries and all these other things.
Colonel, thank you.
Right. Thank you, ma'am.
Wait until you see what we discovered as the investigation into the Paris attacks took our reporter to Belgium. Up next, we'll take you to a place described as one of the worst breeding grounds for jihadists in all of Europe.
We have arrested